Hello everybody, this is Gareth Cahoon Speaks back here with another video. I'd like you to hit the subscribe bar, give me a thumbs up if you like the video, or hit the notification bell to be notified when I post my next post. Or otherwise you can donate to my ministry and the charities that I support at garethcahoon3@gmail.com on PayPal. This one here is Attorney General accuses government of undermining principles of rule of law by disregarding High Court ruling. Dispute between the government and the High Court could signal reform to judicial reforms. Attorney General Gali Baharav Mariah accused the government of harming the rule of law in the State of Israel in a strongly worded statement on Sunday evening, blasting the decision to disregard a recent High Court ruling. Barahava Mariah's statement came after the government declared it would not honour the High Court's decision, allowing the Second Authority Council for Television and Radio to continue operating despite lacking the legally required number of members needed to make decisions. The government's decision, which declares the lack of legal validity of the actions of the outgoing council currently in office, constitutes an additional and serious attempt to thwart the judicial decisions issued by the court and to intimidate anyone who seeks to comply with these decisions or rely on them, the AG's office stated. This undermines fundamental principles of the rule of law in a democratic state. In a letter to the High Court, Bar of Maraz said their decision is a direct continuation of the actions taken by the Minister of Communications in the current proceedings, which led to the resignation of the outgoing council members and whose purpose was to thwart the Honourable Court's decision of May 15, 2026. On Monday, Culture and Sports Minister Miki Zohar Likud denied claims that the government's resolution disregarded the High Court's ruling represents an actual declaration of intent to disobey the ruling, potentially triggering a constitutional crisis. As I know him, the Prime Minister will comply with the High Court's decision. There won't be a constitutional crisis here, so we're told public broadcaster Can News. In my opinion, a constitutional crisis is the beginning of a slippery slope. Zohar also claimed that the government was actually trying to prevent a constitutional crisis. The declaration told the High Court that its behaviour was against the law. Zohar insisted we must obey the High Court's decision, but we'll say that we are on the verge of a constitutional crisis. Zohar's comments appear to be the latest attempt by the government to walk back its declaration after Cabinet Secretary Yossi Fuchs said the statement does not contain a single word calling for non-compliance. Rather, it expresses sharp criticism of a ruling that contradicts the explicit wording of the law. The Coalition's decision to disregard the High Court ruling represents the latest development in its fight against what its members call systematic judicial overreach. The Coalition government brought several bills to the Knesset in the period before October 7th Gaza war, which it billed as judicial reforms aimed at reining in the judiciary. These bills were criticised by the opposition as attempts to undermine the rule of law and led to significant protests in the months before the war. Retired Supreme Court Justice Haran Melchior said Monday that the government's actions are reminiscent of the eve of October 7th, when protests against the judicial reforms were weekly occurrences after drawing tens of thousands of protesters. He said the government's declaration states that they don't recognise the decision of the High Court of Justice. This is an attack on democracy, he warned. One of the groups that helped lead the protest is Movement of Quality Government, MOQG, which has frequently petitioned the High Court against various aspects of the judicial reforms bill. Following the announcement by the coalition government that it would not abide by the High Court's ruling, the MQG hosted a protest rally in Tel Aviv. The government operates like a bunch of anarchists in suits. MQG Chairman Elid Sharaga said this is a government that behaves as if the law is a recommendation Anarchists and suits sitting around the cabinet table cannot decide that the court binds the citizens but not them. The MQG said it would push for court sanctions against the ministers involved in the declaration. The confrontation indicated that the coalition may be gearing up to resume its plans for judicial reforms even before the start of elections this fall. In a recent interview with Channel 14, Israel Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu indicated that his plans to continue the judicial reforms plan both before and after the upcoming elections. So this is something to not to look forward to, but to look to in the future, because I think judicial reforms need to happen, because just like in here in the United Kingdom and the United States, when you give courts who are really unelected bureaucrats sitting in chairs and give them all the power, they can wield it whatever way they please. And if it suits them, it suits them. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. This is why America has a president. Because sometimes the president takes precedent over the law, and the Supreme Court in the United Kingdom has made our country into an unelectable mess. It was brought in by Tony Blair, and it was a shame and disgrace, and a way for Labour to keep control of power through quangos and unelected bureaucrats. So look forward to this row continuing in Israel over judicial reforms. Shalom, Maranatha, and Hallelujah.